Welcome back to Families in Action right here on KHTS, AM 1220, your hometown station, with your host, Cary Quashen, and myself, Michael Doherty. We are here with our special guest, Antonia Boyer, to kick off our May is Mental Health Month. And the theme is Before Stage 4.
Before stage 4, and I know that before we went on break, you were talking about stage 1 and 2. Just briefly go through that, and then we'll go to stage 3.
Okay. But let me jump in real quickly because I wanted to make an invitation to anybody listening out there that we have a therapist with us today, so you can get free therapy by calling in at 661-298-5487.
I'm calling in. I need therapy.
Cary needs help. Go ahead, Anthony.
Okay, stage 1, we're really talking about, we're looking at mild symptoms or just warning signs. Things are going well and, pretty well. We're still functioning in our social realm. People are, not too disgusted with us yet, work, family, etc. And then when we, the second stage that we're talking about, there's an increase in the severity and the length of time. So we'll notice that. We'll notice the symptoms are creeping up, and it becomes almost like a snowball effect. So that would be the second stage. And then the third stage that we're going to go into is when we finally get to our symptoms worsening. And when that happens, sometimes people feel like they need to give up on life. And sometimes people feel like they want to give up on life, their roles, and I think that's really critical, and we'll see that, especially, whether that's being a parent or whether that's working out in an environment, no longer interested in work, lack of interest, period. And so when those things begin to happen, and also I just want to mention some of the other signs and symptoms may be decreased appetite, overeating could be one, various symptoms that we have, increased sleep. We either have more sleep or less sleep. So these things that happen.
Isolation, lack of hunger.
Yes.
Appetite, not taking care of your hygiene.
Correct.
Start giving away stuff.
Yes.
Start quitting responsibilities and stuff like that. Hey, we better really pay attention to these warning signs.
Yes.
Because if Mike goes over the numbers again, suicide's really on the rise. So people are really taking this as an option. And we want to take that option away.
Yeah. And so what you've been telling us here, Antonia, is that we just touched on it now, there is definitely a connection between mental health and our physical well-being.
Yes.
No question about it.
Did you
and
see
depression.
That commercial, Mike?
What's that?
Where does depression hurt? Everywhere. Who does it affect? Everyone. I love that commercial because it's so true.
And one of the things that happens when you get depressed is people want to sleep all the time, right?
Yes.
And I'm always reminded of Woody Allen's joke about the good thing about depression is you get caught up on your sleep.
Oh. Or not.
Or not.
Right?
You can go the other way.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially if you're trying to help yourself along with some methamphetamines or something.
Well, we get a lot of people that comes to us that they can't sleep.
Correct.
Their heads just won't turn off. They can't get the voices out. It's just haunting them.
Yeah.
So, sleep or not enough sleep or too much sleep.
So that's the reason why the theme this year for May is Mental Health Month is before stage 4, because we want to do something before it gets to be that bad.
Right.
That out of control.
Right. So we want to go talk with somebody that we can trust. It could be ideally a professional. Either you could go and speak with your physician. That's one of the first courses, to be able to speak with somebody that sees you, knows you at least somewhat, and to be able to describe what's occurring with you. Additionally, you can speak with a therapist, marriage and family therapist, a social worker. In the hospital, there's people that you can speak with. You can speak with clergy. So we want you to know that there's opportunities available, and you can also call a helpline.
Basically, anybody that you feel that you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get what you need from that person, go to somebody else.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times, somebody will say, "Hey, I talk to people." A lot of people are very uncomfortable talking. They'll just tell you, "You know what? It'll get better." And when we're going through that kind of depression, it's not going to get better right away. There's other steps that have to happen. So if you don't get what you need right away, go to somebody else. Reach out and realize that you don't have to do this by yourself. There are people that may not understand, and there are definitely people who do. Mm-hmm. And again, like you said, I mean, the hospital's open 24 hours a day. So
Yes.
if you really find yourself in a bad way, just walk into the ED and say, hey, I'm in trouble. I need to talk to somebody, and they will help you figure that out.
Now, I have a question for you, Antonia. I know there are people that are listening to us out there saying, well, I might want to go to a therapist, but I don't really know what happens to you there. And so there's this fear of the unknown. I mean, you look like a very nice lady. What happens if I go over there to your office and I engage you as a therapist?
I think initially for myself and many therapists, excuse me, I begin with, I like to take a history, and in that history I want to understand patterns. I want to know, what your life was like before, what's happening now, and I would like to, I think really for the client who comes in, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for a person to come into the office. So I really want to be there. I want to be present with the person, but I also want them to know that I am here to care and to walk with them through it. So the beginning part really is just developing a relationship with them, knowing that I'm here, that I want to hear what they have to say. If there's something that we need to address, for example, a person comes in and they're describing something that sounds like depression, and they're not under the care of someone, and it's outside, I recognize when somebody may need more. Mm-hmm. And so then that I could make that referral. Have you ever considered, would you be willing to see someone? And that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be prescribed meds or anything, but ideally somebody else, a psychiatrist, for example, would then be involved in the case if medication is needed. So, and not to scare people, because some people will come in and medication won't be the answer for them. But for me, what I do with my clients, there's various things I like to utilize. I utilize the arts. So we're looking at what's happening in our world, and it's just a different way to understand what's happening. Instead of using talk and words, we're using language that is symbol. And another way would be, maybe using drumming. I use that. And again, we're just communicating what's within ourselves. And it's just another way to open up, I want to say, a larger venue for people, different people, to come in and feel comfortable if talking isn't necessarily what they want to do.
It's interesting that you mentioned art because, as Cary knows, that's big on our unit at Henry Mayo, the behavioral health unit. We do an awful lot of that, where they get to express themselves with art. The other thing is we've done the drum thing before, and I can tell you one of the most popular things that we do in terms of recreation there is karaoke. They love
karaoke.
to get up and sing. They have a wonderful time.
How come I never heard you sing?
Well, Cary, I guess because you're special.
Okay. I think the only one that heard you sing is your wife in the shower when you're singing. That's about it.
Do you get up there and sing?
No.
I'm curious. Oh, okay.
No.
Just checking.
You don't want to hear me sing. Come on, people now. Smile on your brother.
We'll do a duet one day.
Okay.
Yep. But what you're doing is really you're giving somebody some hope.
Yes.
That the light at the end of the tunnel is not the train.
Right. And what I say to my clients, especially if I have a client that's suicidal, is I believe your value. You have worth. Even if you don't believe it in this moment, I will believe it for you until you get to the place that you can believe that. Mm-hmm. And I really do believe that. I really believe that each of us has value, every single person, and that it's really a privilege to have somebody walk in and say, I'm going to trust you with myself in this moment.
And you brought up something.
It is a privilege.
It
because
is.
That's a scary thing. It's like I've been running groups and counseling stuff for 30-something years, and so many people come to our group and it's their first time. Well, not really. I thought about it for months. I didn't have the courage to come. I drove here last week. I didn't want to come in. I was scared. It's a scary deal for a lot of people to reach out and say to somebody they don't know, hey, help me. I don't feel good. That's scary.
And I wanted to also bring up something you'd mentioned before, and that is, if somebody tells you that they're thinking about committing suicide, there's a big myth out there that people think, oh, I can't say anything about that because it'll cause them to actually commit suicide.
Right.
And we know that's a myth. That's absolutely not going to happen. It's something you want to listen. You want to encourage them to speak. Is that right?
The fact that the person is even telling you that they're considering it means they want somebody to hear. right? Otherwise, you would just commit the act. The fact that you actually have a person who is listening to you in the moment is, I think, crucial. And to recognize that moment, somebody wants your help. And you may not know what to do, but what you can do is say, hey, I'm here with you and I'll walk you through whatever it is. That what then step 2 is, whether that's the hospital, whether that's clergy, whether that's, your physician, whatever it is, I'll help you get to the second step just by moving you to the next person, the next resource.
And for our listeners, it's important to listen. It's important not to be judgmental. It's important not to swear to secrecy. If they say, don't tell anybody, you cannot do that. The other thing is you don't want to leave them alone. You want to get help.
Yes.
You want to get help. And it's not going to cause them to commit suicide.
And by the way, most people have a way of reaching out and saying something. They're giving some kind of warning signs. I wish I wasn't around. Life would be better without me. I mean, there's little things that they are doing and saying that we really need to pay attention to.
Giving away prized possessions.
Giving away prized possessions and, quitting work, not showing up like we were saying for functions. But there's a real simple thing that we can do, and that's pretty much, hey, Mike, are you okay?
Yeah.
And listen. And just be quiet and listen. And most of the people that are really hurting, if you ask them that, they'll tell you. They really will. But we get afraid to open up that can of worms. That can of worms might be the can that saves that person. So it's just a simple, hey, how are you doing today? Kind of thing that might be able to save somebody's life.
And you never really know, actually. Just the opportunity. Again, I think if somebody comes up and actually explains that to you, that it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for us.
Yep.
Well, thank goodness we have therapists out there like
By the way,
yourself.
Mike, are you okay today?
I am okay, Cary.
Just
Thank you
checking.
for asking.
Good to hear.
me.
Good to hear.
Appreciate it. And no, you can't have my prized possessions.
But
Can I have one of your motorcycles?
It's like when I'm at the hospital and stuff, when I'm walking anywhere, I'll always look at somebody and smile, because you never know. Maybe that little smile might just be all they needed for that day, or just a how you doing. You just don't know. So treat people like you want to be treated.
Right. I think the other part of that too is we really do want to put value and place value into one another. Mm-hmm. We all enjoy that. We all want to feel like we're special and that we have something. And taking the time just to notice or acknowledge a person, like you said, I think can be life-changing for some.
Yeah, and we know, we see the evidence of that. When I say we, you do as well, Antonia, but Cary and I do at the Behavioral Health Unit at Henry Mayo, because we get notes, we get letters. We have one posted on the wall in our unit that's the patient actually wrote, "I have hope," and they told us how being there changed their life and put them on the path so that they can now have a life. And we say this, Cary says this, I say this, and you should probably say this too. People ask you what you do. It's real simple. We save lives.
Mm-hmm. And we don't even know it.
No, we don't. Many times
why?
We don't.
Because we hear about the people we lose, but what about the people we don't? What about the people that really came to the Behavioral Health Unit or Action or your office that really was helpless and hopeless, and suicide was an option and became not an option? When just a little smile and a pat on the back and how you doing kind of deal.
Because you gave them hope.
Because you gave them hope, and that the light at the end of the tunnel is not the train coming to crush them.
Right.
But it's real light.
What would you say to somebody out there that was kind of sitting on the fence about seeing a therapist?
I would say that it takes courage to be able to do it, but the question is, do you want to remain in pain, or do you want to get help with your pain? It's just like when you go to the physician. Do you want to still be in your pain, or do you want to go there and get some relief, or go to a chiropractor, or whomever you go to? But the idea is that you want some form of relief, some solution to your problem, some way to better your life. And that's the idea of going in and having therapy.
So it is a choice.
It is absolutely a choice.
And if they don't make the choice to do that, what's going to happen to them, because they're making the choice not to do anything, they're going to get worse. That's what we're talking about.
A lot of times, yes.
Before stage 4.
There's an occasion where somebody might be able to figure a way to snap themselves out of it. But why take that risk?
And I think people are resilient. Some people do think of that, do have ways to do it. But I think if we're talking actually mental health and mental illness, I think we're making a distinction. You know, the mental illness piece of that, if we're looking at depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or any of these other things, you need to have help.
Yes, that's something you can't manage by yourself.
Absolutely.
If you really have a mental health diagnosis, and it's psychosis or schizophrenia or extreme anxiety and depression,
yes,
then you need to really seek professional help, because the medical profession has come so far in the last, just say 10 years, on medications and that kind of stuff, that you'd be shocked what can happen. So it's something you do not want to attack by yourself. I mean, if it's a depression kind of deal and you're finding yourself coming out of it, fine. If you can handle that, then take care of business. But if you can't, reach out.
And we're also looking at things like post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
We're also looking at at bipolar disorder, which can be a little bit difficult to figure out. But when somebody's in that manic end of bipolar or on the depressed end, they need help. That is not a fun place to be.
Correct.
And I'll tell you what, and a lot of times you get in that spot where you just can't see a way out, but there most always is a way out. So anyways, and that thing that time heals all, no, I don't believe that. I believe time makes things easier, but if you need help, you need help. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and take a break. This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Welcome back to Families in Action, right here on KHTS AM 1220, your hometown station. And here on Families in Action, we are kicking off. May is Mental
Health Month. Oh,
May is Get Your Mouth Fixed. May is Mental Health Month right here. And we have our special guest with us, Antonia Boyer, who is a local therapist, have like 25 years experience behind you with doing that, so you know a thing or two. And you have a couple things you'd like to touch on just before we close the show.
Yes, I wanted, if people have, or if they think they're experiencing some symptoms, I want you to know that there's a website that you can go to, and it's a screening. You go to www.MHAS screening, which is www.mhasscreening.org. Again, that's www.mhasscreening.org. And you'll take a quick confidential screening for a variety of different conditions. It's anxiety, depression, mood disorders, etc., PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, etc.
Very cool. And we have another one, too, so let's give them both out.
We do. You can actually come to the Henry Mayo website, and when you go to the portion about the behavioral health services, you'll also be able to click on a link that will take you to probably the same type of website that you're talking about, where it's absolutely 100% confidential. It takes about 3 minutes. It's just a quick screening, and at the end of that time, you can make a choice. You can actually click on some links that will educate you about what it's told you, and you can also find local resources.
You know, but before we went on break, before we came back from break, we were also talking about the stigma of seeing a therapist, and you were saying, I would like you to kind of jump into that.
I was saying that therapy, the idea of therapy, and even when I started 25 years ago in my education, the way that we looked at therapy and and disorders, and I think more of, I want to say in the profession, I would like to say the switch now has been for us more of a resiliency, at least for me.
Right.
I'm looking at how resilient we are as people. And what I want to do is engage you. I want to join hands with you and help you tap into that part of yourself.
Help you
so that
tap
you can
into
bring it out.
Exactly.
Yes.
No therapist is going to fix you,
yes,
or wave a wand or tell you what to do. They're just going to help you come to grips with what you need to do.
Absolutely.
And decisions that you need to make.
Right.
Anthony, it's been a pleasure having you on the show with us today and helping us kick off May's Mental Health Month.
But if somebody wants to get a hold of her, how would they do that?
Yeah.
Oh, they can reach me at 661-254-WELL.
254-WELL?
And that's 254-9355.
One more time?
661-254-9355 or 661-254-WELL.
Very cool. She was, hey.
Very cool.
Isn't that cool?
Before we leave today, Cary, one more thing on the action file, and this is something we've been talking about. We just started a little bit ago.
And we're not going to stop.
No. Ignition interlock device. And for those of you that don't know what this is all about, this is where you put a device on the car. We want these on all cars, all new cars.
Right out of the factory.
Right out of the factory. And all you do is you take 3 whole seconds to blow, and it's like a breathalyzer. If you have an alcohol content where you should not be behind the wheel of a car, your engine will not start. And think of the lives that will save. We have talked about the numbers of lives. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of lives that this would save. Unbelievable.
At a very extremely low cost.
It is.
So imagine that. You go to a bar, you come out, you're drunk, you try to drive, and your car says,
And
lives were just saved.
Right. And if
that's what we want.
And if you get a friend of yours who's sober to come and blow in it while you're drunk and your car starts, I have bad news for you, because your car will not shut off, by the way. That's what some people think. That would be dangerous on the roads.
Of course.
That won't happen. But what will happen is at intermittent times, you will have to re-blow into the breathalyzer just to make sure that you haven't stopped off for a cool one.
Put it in my car. I don't mind blowing into something every so often. If I know other people are doing it and it's going to save lives, it might even save my life. What if I'm driving down the street and some drunk hits me?
No, absolutely.
It's called an ignition interlock device. They're already using them here in LA for people that are convicted of drunk driving. So it's not like this has not been tried. This is a very successful program, but we want it on every car.
Right straight from the factory.
Right straight from the factory. Think of the lives it will save, and it's only going to take you like 3 seconds. Unless you're drunk, and then you can't find your car or the breathalyzer.
And then you won't drive anyway, so
That's
we're
right.
in good shape. The only thing it won't help for is narcotics, but, hopefully they'll figure that out sooner or later. But in the meantime, alcohol is related for so many car crashes and deaths right now that we can actually take that number and beat it down to almost nothing if you
That's
can't
true.
drive drunk.
That is actually true. That's been proven.
Yeah, so, hey, that's something that we want to do. I guess it's time for us to close this show, isn't it? So, again, thank you so much. Your phone number one last time.
661-254-WELL.
And that's it. This is Families in Action on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Happy Monday. Be safe out there.